Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, April 30th. In our devotion for today, I would like to continue with this theme we've had each week about keeping our eyes on Jesus. What are some practical ways that we keep our eyes on Jesus? Today's story comes from Acts chapter 16. Paul and Silas are on one of their missionary journeys and they're going through a small city. And as they're going, there is a slave girl who is following them around and yelling out, "I know who you are." Paul gets somewhat irritated by her and turns around and he frees her from whatever was ailing her, whatever was, it says a demon was possessing her. She was owned by two men who were abusing her and using her to make money. And so they got angry with Paul for doing this. And the result was they brought up false charges and had Paul and Silas thrown in prison. They made up a whole story. They convinced the magistrates, and Paul and Silas, with their rights being totally violated without a trial, were thrown into prison. They were flogged and beaten. And while they're in prison, something interesting happens. Now, you or I, we would be angry. We would be upset if we were treated in such a horrible way, if our rights had been walked all over, if we had ignored, if we had been our right, if injustice had been done against us and we'd been thrown in prison. We would have been angry at just about everybody, including God. Paul and Silas are a little bit different. While they are in prison, all these horrible things are happening to them. They are keeping their eyes on Jesus. And they do this while basically by praising God, by forcing themselves, regardless of how they might feel, regardless of the pain they feel in their body, they force themselves to sing praises to God. And it's amazing. We can praise God not just when things are going bad, but also not just when things are going good, excuse me, but also when things are going bad. Not just when we feel like it, but when life is hard or uncomfortable, when we're in difficult situations. Those are just as important times to praise God as when things are going well and everything is comfortable and easy. We praise God during those times simply because it's a practical way to keep our eyes on Jesus. When we praise God, all we have to do is sing a song about God. Any song that we can remember, anything that gets our eyes off of ourselves and more upon focusing and thinking about God. One of the ways that this really helps us is it helps us to see our position, our circumstances, not through our own pain, but through a different perspective. And that's so important in being able to encounter and see what God might be doing, what God might be saying, or how God might be acting. In this story of Paul and Silas in prison, they started, and they didn't just do it for 30 minutes. They were doing it for an hour after hour. It was about midnight, finally, as they've been praising God and singing songs for several hours, that all of a sudden there was an earthquake. All of a sudden the cell doors flew open. Again, you or I in that situation would have thought, "Oh, God's answering our prayers. God's rescuing us. We're out of here. We're not supposed to be here, right?" But Paul and Silas, because they had been praising God, because their eyes weren't obsessed with their own circumstances, as horrible and as painful as they were, because they were praising God in those difficult moments, they saw that God was moving and doing something completely the opposite. They wouldn't have been able to see that if they hadn't praised God, I don't believe. If they hadn't taken their eyes off themselves and somehow figured out how to focus, keep their eyes on Jesus, they wouldn't have seen how God was moving and what God wanted them to do. You see, when all the doors opened, they convinced everyone not to run away. They knew the price under Roman rule if a jailer allowed prisoners to escape, or if their watch prisoners fled or escaped, the jailer would be executed and his family would be executed. Knowing that innocent lives were at stake, Paul and Silas stayed. They convinced others to stay. And when the jailer came and saw that the cell doors were open, the jailer immediately tried to throw himself on his sword to kill himself. And Paul and Silas said, "Wait, don't. We haven't gone anywhere." The result was that the jailer was just dumbfounded. They're like, "Why did you choose to stay?" And Paul and Silas were, "Because we wanted to talk to you, to share with you the good news, to share with their own jailer about good news, forgiveness, and hope." As a result, their wounds are tended. The jailer invites Paul and Silas to his home. They witness to their family about the resurrection of Jesus. The whole family believes and is baptized. People are saved. Why? Because Paul and Silas weren't just thinking about their own lives. They weren't thinking that they were the center of the story. The story was something else, and they were on the periphery looking in. And to be able to get that perspective, they were able to do that because they kept their eyes on Jesus. And practically speaking, they kept their eyes on Jesus by basically praising God and singing songs to God, even in difficult moments, even in the middle of their struggles. It's yet another way of how we keep our eyes on Jesus. Uh, Thank you to everyone who participated in our prayer meeting last night. It was great to be able to connect with you. You can go to Facebook if you want and watch that prayer meeting and pray along with us. We do have worship coming up this Sunday, 9 a.m. Join us live on Facebook, as well as please continue to send me your Facebook requests. Don't forget to download our app from the App Store or from the Google Play Store if you haven't yet. There's lots of great ways to connect with what's going on and see what's happening at Alpines. Have a great day. God's blessing be upon you. Don't forget to take care and look in on those who are most vulnerable. See you tomorrow.